Good morning, Chillin. Sairam. Chillin, today I'm going to start the next chapter of book Indian Economic Development. That is chapter number 10th, and the name of our chapter is Employment and Unemployment. Children, this is the first video of this chapter, and in this video, we are going to learn up some of the important topics of this chapter. We are going to learn first some basic concepts of employment and unemployment. In this topic, we are going to learn what is the employment and unemployment and various types. Then, after, we are going to learn the size of workforce in India, rate of participation in India, self-employed and hired workers, occupational structure or a distribution of workforce by the industry, and we do learn jobless growth, and the remaining two topics we are going to learn up in the next video. So children, let us start with the first topic, that is introduction of employment and unemployment. Children, first concept is what is unemployment. Children, unemployment refers to a situation when the people are willing to work at an existing wage rate and are able to work but are not getting work. I mean, a person or a worker who is seeking a job or any kind of work, he is ready to work at an existing wage rate, whatever the rate, the wage rate prevails, and are fully able to work but are not getting any work. So we can say that a person is an unemployed person. So it should have been noted with the emphasis that such people who are not willing to work at an existing wage rate are not considered as unemployment. A person who is getting a job, but he is not, you can say he is not ready to work with the existing wage rate. Whatever the rate, the wage rate the employer is providing, he is not ready to work. I mean, he is wanting that he should have more salaries, he should have more income, then only he can work. So we cannot say that the person is an unemployed person. An unemployed person is a person who are ready to work at an existing wage rate but does not get any work. Then that person is considered as an unemployed person. Now the second concept is who is a worker. A children, a worker is an individual who is involved in some economic activities in order to earn a living. So a worker, as I just said, is an individual who is engaged in some production work, in some productivity activity. So a worker or an individual who is engaged in a production activity contributes to GDP by rendering his services. So some of the examples of the workers are like farmers, managers, laborers, doctors, barbers, and professors, etc. These are the workers who are considered as a worker, and these peoples are contributing in, you can say these peoples are engaged in some of production activity, and they are contributing to the country's GDP. Now we are going to learn the type of workers. Children, the workers can be classified under the two categories. The first one is self-employed person, self-employed workers, and the next one is the hired workers. Now what is self-employed and what is a hired workers? Children, the workers can be classified under the two broad categories. There's the first one is self-employed workers, second is the hired workers. Now what is self-employed workers? Children, these are those workers who are engaged in their own business or on professions. For example, a farmer who is working on his own farm, or any entrepreneur who is working in his own factory. So these are called as self-employed workers, because they are not working under someone's considerations, but they are working for self self considerations, and these peoples are known as the self-employed workers. Now the second one is the hired workers. So, children, as per the name, you can understood hired workers are those workers who work for others. I mean, who has been hired by someone, and they render their services to others as a reward, get the wages or the salaries. So, they may be paid in kind. For examples, if you say that like we are working in a school, and we are considered as a hired workers because we are working in as per the terms and conditions of the school. So a professors who are reading in a publication house, or a teacher who are working in a school, this will be considered as a hired workers. Now, the next classification is casual workers and a regular worker. Casual, the word suggests, casual means it's not regularly. It is for occasionally or for some period of time. So the casual workers are the daily wages. They are not hired by their employers on a regular basis. I mean, they're not working for throughout the year, but they are working for a couple of days, couple of months, or couple of times. So they are not given social security benefits like the provident fund, gratuity, or a pension. So this will be considered as a casual workers. Now the next classification is a regular worker. What are the regular workers? Children, regular workers are those workers who are working on the permanent payroll of the employers. They are entitled to all the social security benefits, including the pension, gratuity, and the provident fund. Children, it is often found that the casual workers are considered as unskilled workers, like a workers who are working at the construction site, whereas a regular worker, on the other hand, is usually a skilled workers, like an engineer who was working in a factory. So these are the broad classification of the workers, and the self-employed and hired workers, casual workers, and regular workers. So, in the short, we can understand that self employed workers are those workers who are working in their own business or professions. They are earning profits as a reward for their own services, whereas the hired workers are the workers or the people who are working, who are hired by others, and they are paid wages, the salaries, as a reward for their own services. Now, children, the hired workers are further classified into the two categories. As the first one is the casual workers, and the second one is the regular workers. Casual workers means a worker is getting work for a limited point of time, or for occasionally. So he is not working for throughout the year, and they are not getting the social security benefits like the provident fund, and you can see that pension and all. Whereas the regular workers are majorly working on the permanent roles of their employer, and are entitled to the social security benefits. Now, children, we are going to learn what is the labor supply, workforce, and the labor force. So, children, the labor supply, labor force, and workforce have some different concepts, and let us learn first what is a labor force. Children, labor force means all persons who are working or have a job, and though not working, are seeking and are available for work, are dreamed to be in labor force. In other words, we can say that labor force is the total of employed or unemployed persons. So, we can say that labor force refers to the number of workers actually working or willing to work. It is not related to the wage rate. Whereas labor supply, how to calculate basically first the labor force. Still, to get the labor force, we need to subtract from the total population. Like first we need to remove the number of peoples who are unfit, like old or handicapped persons, the peoples who are not willing to work, that also been deducted from the total population. And last, the people who are not able to work, these three must be deducted from the total population in order to gain the value of total, sorry, in order to gain the value of labor force. So this is the labor force. Now we are going to learn what is workforce. Children, the number of peoples, the persons who are actually employed at a particular time are known as the workforce. It includes all those people who are actually engaged in the productive activities. And how we are calculating the number of unemployed peoples? The unemployed people is the labor force minus the workforce. Then this by applying this formula, we will get the value of unemployed people. Now we are going to learn what is the labor supply. Children, the labor supply refers to the amount of labors that the workers are willing to offer corresponding to a particular wage rate. And it is you all must be knowing that you may be able to work for 10 hours in a day, but willing to work only for 6 hours a day at a particular wage rate. So labor supply thus is measured in order to man hours of work, which is considered as the 8 hours. If a person is working at 8 hours in a day, this is called as the labor supply of one man per day. So it is also estimated in relation to the wage rate. So work phase, as I just said, it is it refers to the number of people who are actually working and does not account for those who are willing to work but working. This will be considered as the workforce. The number of unemployed people, how would we calculating? The workforce has to be subtracted with the labor force in order to gain the total unemployed people. And if we want to calculate the rate of unemployment, then the number of people unemployed is dividing with the size of the labor force and multiplying with 100. Then this way we are calculating the rate of unemployment in a country. So, and the participation ratio, it is equal to the total workforce divided with total population into 100. So it is refers to the percentage of populations actually working. Children, now the next topic is size of workforce in India. Children, there are some important facts which we needed to be pay attention first, like India has a workforce of nearly 40 crores of peoples in our country. Out of total population of 125 crores, 40 crores of the people are in workforce. I mean, they are ready to work and they are able to work. And about 70% of workforce comprises of the male workers. Only 30% are the female workers. So out of this 40 crores of workforce, children, 70% are the male employees and the 30% are the female workers. And nearly 70% of the workforce is found in the rural areas, where in urban areas the percentage is only the 30%. And female workforce in rural areas is nearly 41.8%, while it is only 35.31% in the urban areas. So as comparing with the urban areas, you will find that the female workforce is more in the rural areas. Now why the bulk of our workforce are rural based? What is the reason behind it? Children, the simply reasons behind this is like the bulk of the jobs are we find in the rural areas. We can find that the bulk of our GDP is derived from the rural economy. As you all must be knowing, India's economy is an agricultural economy, and which implies is that the more peoples are engaged in the farming and the allied activities, but contributing less to the GDP. This means the less productivity of the workers in the rural areas and if it is the low productivity, it implies as the less or the low earnings, which is why there is a widespread poverty across in the rural areas. So, now the next question arises is, why is the percentage of the female workers is low and lower still in urban areas? This is because of the following reasons, the female education in India is still a far cry, implying low opportunities for the jobs, and among most families in the rural and urban areas, jobs work for the women is still governed by the famous decisions rather than the individual's own decisions, which implies is that even the available opportunities are not actually utilized. In children in the rural areas, the female workforce are giving major contributions to the in the farm, you can say, works, because they feel that if they are too working in the farm activities, then their production should be more. But in the urban areas, children, the decisions to work for the women, it still depends upon the family's decisions. If the families are ready that the female workers can work in any industry, in any of a company or in any of employment, then this depends upon the family's decision. It is not depends upon the woman's self on decisions. So this is why we can say that the bulk of female workforce found to be more in the rural areas as comparing with the urban areas. So now, children, we are going to learn the self-employed and the hired workers in India. Children, uh, with this, you can say distribution of workers as self-employed and hired workers for 2017 to 18 is shown, and it is shown separately for the rural and the urban areas of the country. So, children, the self-employed will be denoted by you can say by this yellow color, whereas the hired workers is being representing by this green color. Here we have a major classification, like this is an urban workers, this is an rural workers. So you can find that, children, in the year 2017 to 18, the total workers who are working in the urban areas, that is, we take the values as 100%, but 38.3 percent, this particular slot belongs to the self-employed people who are working in the urban areas, whereas 61.7 percent is the value of a hired workers. So in urban areas, self-employed peoples are less than the hired workers, because they are most interested in working with someone's considerations under the regular payroll or on casual payroll. Whereas in our rural areas, in the rural workers, you can see that 57.8% are the self-employed persons in the rural areas, in the rural workers, whereas only 42.2% are the hired workers in the rural areas. So, children, in urban areas, the people look for the skilled jobs in offices and the factories, where in rural areas, family farms are the most attractive means of employment. Whereas in rural areas, you can say that non-farm job opportunities are very limited, and accordingly, people generally do not show the preferences to acquire skills in the training for non-farm occupations, though they prefer to stay on families, farms, and fields as the self-employed. Now, as per the gender, we are calculating the total workforce of workers as self-employed and hired in the rural as well as in the urban areas. Children in the rural areas, you can find in rural areas, you can find that uh, the female first, we'll see the female 48.1% is the total populations who are you can say the female workers who are the hired workers in the rural areas, whereas 51.9% are the self-employed. So this percentage is more than this one. But if you see the male persons, the male category who are working in the urban areas, now 47.7% peoples are the hired workers, whereas 52.3% are the the people who are working in an urban areas. So we can find that children, owing to the low level of educations but the high compulsion for jobs, it makes a sustainable living for the family. The women, like unlike men, are ready to work even at a low wage rate. So, children, this figure 2 reveals that the self-employment among women is as significant as the wage employment. This is because women in the rural areas find ample opportunities of a self-employment, engaging themselves in traditional jobs like spinning, weaving, dyeing, and bleaching. Now, children, the next topic, the occupational structure and the distribution of workforce by the industry. Children, we now study the distribution of a workforce across the primary, secondary, and the tertiary sectors of the economy, which is briefly called a occupational structure of the economy. So, children, as we all know, the primary sectors include the agriculture, forestry, logging, and fishing, mining, and acquiring uh, field, whereas in secondary sector includes manufacturing, construction, electricity, gas, and water supply, where in tertiary sectors, which is the third sector of an economy, it includes trade, transport, storage, services like banking and insurance. So this is their contributions of workforce across the primary, secondary, and the territory sectors during the year 2017 to 18, which is shown in the percentage. So children, you just observe 43.8 belongs to the primary sectors. Uh, the second sector is 24.7, and at last the tertiary sector's contributions of the workforce is 31.5%. Now, for next, we are going to learn what we understand by the jobless growth. Children, the economic growth occurs when the GDP rises, as we all know. It implies is that the increase in the level of the output. So, children, increase in the level of output can be achieved in the two ways. The first is through the greater employment, and the second is through the better technologies. So, children, in the poor countries like India, where there is a staggering unemployment, the economic growth becomes meaningful only when it is associated with the greater opportunities of employment so that poverty is combated. But unfortunately, the Indian economy is experiencing that the GDP more through the technology other than the employment of the labor, because as you all know, India has a has a vast of unemployment, and the population is very high. It is the second largest highly populated country in the world. Therefore, we can find that there is a challenge between the Indian's economy, as we have been experiencing that the GDP can be increased or can be more through the technologies than the employment of the labor. So that is why it is a situation of a jobless growth. Now, children, what is a jobless growth? Children, a jobless growth is basically a situation when the level of output in the economy tends to rise owing to innovative technologies without any perspective rise in the level of employment. So, jobless growth leads to a chronic employment, even when there is a rise in the GDP. So, children, now there is need to understand that why we are relying more on technology and less of employment. Children, the reason behind this is like our growth process has been increasingly hijacked by the MNCs, that is the multinational companies, and these companies specialize in achieving the high growth through the efficient technologies rather than the greater use of manpower. So, the growing gulf between the two rates is an alarming charge sign for a country, whereas the jobless labor force has tended to swell over time. Children, now the next topic is casualization and informalization of workforce. What is the casualization means? Children, an interesting features of a workforce is that it includes a large percentage of casual workers, and their number is trending up. Who are casual workers? Children, the casual workers are those workers who you can say who work for a casual they are not getting a permanent job, but they are the daily wagers. They are not being hired by the employers on the regular basis, and this kind of employees are not getting any social security contributions, the benefits like the provident fund, the gratuity, or even the pension. So here, this is being shown the total percentage of the casual hired workers in the total workforce, which is rising from 23%, which is in the year 1972 to 73, to 33% in 1991, and this percentage is increasing more in 2019 2009 to 10, which is 39.3%, but it slightly declined to 30.9% in 2013 to 14, and at last it has also declined for 24.9% in 17 to 18. So this the percentage of the self-employed workers are also declined from 62% in 1972, and at present in the year 2017 to 18 it is further increased to 52.2%, which goes down for 49.5% in the year 2013 to 14. For the regular hired workers also, children, the workforce, the total workforce continues to however 15% during the 72 to 73, which is 22.8% in the year 2017 to 18. So now the next topic we are going to learn what is informalization. What is informalization, children? Informalization, the employment can be broadly classified as formal sector employment and informal sector employment. What is formal sector employment? Children, first, in order to learn what is a formal sector employment, first learn what is formal sector. So, children, formal sector refers to an organized sector of the economy. It includes all government departments, the public enterprises, and the private establishments which hires 10 or more workers. This working in the organized sectors are called as the formal workers, whereas informal sector refers to unorganized sectors of the economy, and it includes all such private enterprises which hires less than 10 workers, beside farmings and the self-employment workers. So this kind of workers will be known as the informal workers. Now, next topic is the formal workers, the informal workers. We are going to learn the differences between the formal workers as well as the informal workers. Children, what is a formal worker means? Children, work in an organized sectors of an economy is known as the formal workers, whereas the work in an unorganized sectors in an economy is known as the informal workers. Those who are working, this formal workers are entitled to the social security benefits, children, the formal workers is known as the regular workers, and the informal workers will be considered as the casual workers. So formal workers are known as the organized sectors of the economy, and these are entitled to the social security benefits like the provident fund, the gratuity, the pension, whereas the informal workers are not entitled to the social security benefits. Formal workers can form a trade unions, whereas the casual or the informal workers cannot be form a trade unions. So these are protected by the various labor laws against the uncertainties of the market, whereas an informal workers remains unproductive by the labor laws and are therefore high vulnerable to uncertainties of the market. Now the next one is informalization of workforce. Children, informalization of workforce is defined as a situations where the percentage of workforce in the formal s- sectors tends to decline and that in the informal sectors tend to incline. So children, uh, we can see that um, in accordance with the socialistic pattern of the society as a central goal of development planning launched in the 1991, the formal sector's employment should have raised and informal sector employment should have declined over the time. So a series of economic reforms were initiated, was launched in the year 1991 with liberalization, privatization, and globalization as the key elements. And consequently, there is a significant transformation from a controlled economy to the market economy. So now, children, at last, we are going to revise what the topics we have already learned today. Children, in today's video, we have already learned the basic concepts of employment basically, and size of workforce in India, the rate of participation in India, whereas we have already learned what is labor force, labor supply, and the workforce. And thereafter we have learned the self-employed and the hired workers in India, the occupational structure or the distribution of workforce to industry, and we do have learned the growthless economy, the growth and casualization and informalization of the workforce. So these are the topics we have already covered up in today's video, and in the next video we are going to learn the kinds of unemployment. So children, I hope in today's video you are going to understand all these basic points, and in next video we are going to cover up the next remaining topics of this chapter. So children, thank you so much for watching the video and have a nice day in Sairam.